Is this A's team good or are they bad? I don't think anyone knows.
You are Locked On A's, your daily podcast on the Athletics, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Kyle Morrison here on Locked On A's, live here from the patio in Dublin, California. We got better connection and better sound on the patio in the show that came out on Friday. So we're going to try it again here today. And besides, it's a beautiful day out here, so this may be something I just try to do after day games when the weather is nice outside. A's lose 2 out of 3 the Chicago White Sox this weekend. I told you guys, this White Sox team, despite the fact they came in 7-13, they're better than they were the last couple of years, and they showed it here this weekend. Really probably could have swept the A's. The A's did come back on Saturday with a pretty epic comeback. Nick Kurtz hit the home run to tie the game. It was a great afternoon for A's fans. Muncy with this walk-off sacrifice fly, but then they came back out yesterday on Sunday with a dud, and just not a lot of good news out of that game. Jeffrey Springs got roughed up, and I said this on my YouTube short after the game was over, but no Jeffrey Springs hate is allowed at the table here on Locked On A's, because Jeffrey Springs has really been a godsend for the A's this year, and he was bound to have a bad start. I didn't expect it to be this bad, but it was, to be expected. He wasn't going to be shutting guys down all year long. I still think he's got a shot to be a really good pitcher this year. I still think he's got a shot to be an all-star. That's a hot take, I know, after this start, but 7 earned runs over 5 innings for Springs. It wasn't like the walks were a problem. It was the home runs. He gave up 4 home runs in 5 innings, which just shows you that these White Sox hitters had no trouble reading the ball out of the arm of Jeffrey Springs in Sunday's game. But the bigger issue that I wanted to address, and we'll address some stuff as we go on. I want to talk more about the A's lineup construction later in the show. A's have to figure out who they're going to have in the leadoff spot. They had Jeff McNeil in there for the first 2 games of the series, and they put Jacob Wilson back in there. You all know my feelings. I think Jacob Wilson should be the leadoff hitter, but you got to pick someone, because right now this A's lineup is just constantly different, constantly in flux, and I just don't think that's the recipe for a successful team. Again, I'm someone who believes in roles. We'll talk about that later. And then even later in the show, I'm done with Luis Severino, guys. I know I haven't been a Luis Severino fan since the moment I took over the show. Luis Severino, probably, if he even notices or watches the podcast, which I highly doubt, but if he does, he probably does not like me. I don't have anything against him as a person. I just think he has been horrible as a pitcher for the A's. And so I'm ready to cut bait. I have some ideas about what the A's should do with Luis Severino that we'll talk about later in the show. But first and foremost, overarching theme, A's lose 2 out of 3 from the White Sox. And, this is disappointing on a number of different chords. Even though I said in Friday's show that the White Sox are a different team, that they're a good team, good's not the right word, that they're a better team, that they're a competitive team now. You can't be losing 2 out of 3 to the White Sox. The White Sox, look, they may surprise me, and, they surprised me in this series. They really roughed up the A's for 3 games, got 2 wins. But I don't expect the White Sox to be in the playoffs, and if you're the A's and you're expecting to compete for a playoff spot, you got to take care of business, especially at home against teams like the White Sox. Look, it's one thing to go on the road into a hostile environment and lose some games. That's to be expected. It's much harder to win on the road than it is at home. But when you're at home, you got to take care of business, particularly against teams that you're supposed to beat. And the White Sox are one of those teams. And the A's, they didn't have great pitching in this series at all. Savali, Severino, and Springs all get roughed up. And the lineup, aside for the comeback in Game 2, continues to be inconsistent. We'll go over some numbers here in just a bit. But the lineup is really starting to worry me, guys. I've kind of been trying to hold out hope through each episode. Oh, they're going to turn around, they're going to turn around, they're going to turn around. And who knows? They very well might. But there are some real worrisome numbers for this lineup right now. I mean, gosh darn it. Andy Ibanez batted cleanup to yesterday. I know I'm not an Andy Ibanez hater. I think Andy Ibanez has a role on a good team, but he should not be your cleanup hitter ever whatsoever. And today he was the cleanup hitter, and the game went about the way that you would expect. And then the other thing that really disappoints me is that, look, the A's have been coming off a nice run of success. They went in New York, took 5 out of 6 from the Yankees and the Mets. And it's incredible how different this Monday show is compared to the Monday show last week, where we were all happy and jubilant and talking about how great the A's are. And it's much different now because they lost 2 out of 3 to a bad White Sox team. Although they're better, they're still bad. And so it's disappointing to me to see them take 5 and 6 from New York, split with the Rangers, who are a hard division rival and a team they'll probably be competing with in division. That's not great, but it's not bad either. You split with a team you're going to be competing with all year. I think that's okay. You get through all that. You've had a nice little stretch, and then you burn the spaghetti against the White Sox, going into a really hard series with the Mariners. To me, that is just a sign of immaturity. It's a sign of a lack of focus. You can't say, oh, okay, we got through the Mets and the Yankees and the Rangers. Now it's the White Sox. We can take it chill. No, you can't do that. This is Major League Baseball. All these guys, no matter what team you face, have earned the right to be here. They all want to win. They all are coming in with a mission to try to knock you off. And so really it shows me a lack of focus from this team that they allowed the White Sox to spank them around for 3 games, because that should not have happened, particularly with what we saw from the A's in previous games. The other thing that frustrates me, and this is more just frustrates me as someone who has to come on the show and talk about them all the time, I am so confused about this A's team right now. And look, they're 11-11, so I guess I should be confused. I don't know if this team is good. I don't know if this team is bad. We've seen, moments this season where we've seen both. And it just, to me, like, I just don't see an identity yet on this team. I guess that's really what I'm getting to. I don't see an identity on this team yet. I don't see a rallying point. And, a lot of this might be that Brent Rooker's out right now, and he really is kind of the main veteran that this team can rally around. But I don't see this team really, I don't know, what do the A's hang their hat on? I thought it was going to be offense, but the offense hasn't been very good. I thought maybe for a little bit it'd be pitching, but then the pitching imploded this weekend. It's definitely not the bullpen, because the A's really kind of punted on having an elite bullpen when they traded Mason Miller, which, by the way, A's fans, if you want to be in a worse mood, go check out the way Mason Miller has pitched to start this season. Not saying it was a bad trade. I think Leo DeVries has a great chance to be a great shortstop at the major league level, but the A's definitely did give up a really, really good reliever in that trade. And the bullpen, again, they have no identity, just like the rest of this team. So one of the things that I would really like to see from this A's team, and I was hoping that they would take 2 out of 3 or sweep the White Sox this weekend, and we would get to kind of learn more about what this team's identity is, but we still don't know. Have no idea what makes this team great, what might make this team good. And to me, as someone who has to cover the team, as someone who's a fan of the team, that is very, very frustrating. And I'm sure many of you share those frustrations. All right, let's dive into some numbers. So talked about how the A's offense was very inconsistent in this series. I mean, obviously there's the big comeback, 7-6 on Saturday, but you take a look at some of the guys in this series. We'll start off with Shea, because Shea has been phenomenal this year. Shea didn't have a great series. He went 3 for 12. That's okay. No RBIs, no home runs. Wait, Max Muncy, he's had a great start to the season. 765 OPS. Really wasn't that good in this series. He went 1 for 11. So you can start to see all these guys that the A's really look at as being, their guys, did not have a very good series whatsoever. Lawrence Butler, another guy who struggled here in this series. He ended up going 1 for 8, and he didn't even start in the Sunday game because there was a lefty on the mound. So again, kind of what I referred to earlier, it looks like Lawrence Butler is kind of become just a platoon guy for the A's, which is really disappointing considering how much money the A's have invested in Lawrence Butler to be an everyday outfielder and to be a star for this team and someone who can make an all-star team. Remember, he had a bad year last year against lefties. I get that. But in 2024, he had an over 800 OPS against left-handed pitching. And right now, it's not that Lawrence Butler can't hit lefties. He's not hitting anyone, just like the rest of this A's team. And I say all this to really sound the alarm on the fact that this A's offense is not good right now. And that is not a good thing when we think about the fact that we came into the season expecting that if there was one thing we could count on, it was that the A's had a lineup chock full of young stars that they could count on to help them score runs. And we saw here in this series, the offense came through in the second game of the series, but the pitching wasn't very good in the first and third game of the series, which also something we expected. We did not expect the pitching on this team to be elite. And the pitching was not very good in either 3 games. And the offense couldn't help them in games 1 or 3. In fact, the offense put up pretty uninspiring performances. And so I think it is about time that we start asking ourselves, is this A's offense just not going to be very good this year? Are we seeing a bunch of guys going through sophomore slumps? Are the A's going to have to make some moves to try to solidify this offense? Is it that without Brent Rooker, this A's offense really isn't all that good? And, I say that, but the A's offense wasn't good when Brent Rooker was in the lineup either. So, there's a lot of questions that the A's have to answer when it comes to this lineup. And right now, I just don't see a lot of really great answers as far as who they got. The bullpen also struggled, and there were some really questionable bullpen decisions as far as usage, personnel usage. I don't understand why Justin Sterner pitched 2 1/3 on Friday. This is one of your high leverage guys, and you just knocked him out for definitely Saturday's game, and that probably knocked him out for yesterday's game too. That made no sense. They ended up sending down Elvis Alvarado after he had a bout adding on Friday. He'll probably be back up at some point. But then why are we calling up Mason Barnett? I thought Luis Medina was going to be the long man, but apparently now Luis Medina is getting high leverage opportunities, which I don't know. That doesn't seem like a good thing. Luis Medina, he's a guy who should be a starter, and now he's getting high leverage opportunities in the bullpen. He hasn't blown me away. The bullpen was pretty decent in game 2. I will give them that. Aside from an earned run given up by Hogan Harris, they were pretty decent. But then you take a look at this game against the White Sox, and aside from Mason Barnett, who kind of did mop-up duty, I mean, Springs was bad, and Medina and Barlow hit a guy and almost, pissed off the entire White Sox team. So still a lot of questions to answer when it comes to the bullpen, when it comes to the lineup. Actually, looking back at the numbers, the bullpen wasn't as bad as I thought I was going to make the case, but they still weren't very good, particularly in game 1 of the series. So, yeah, a lot of worries, a lot of questions. And right now, I don't know if the A's have a ton of answers, but we'll find out after the break. We're going to talk a little bit about the lineup construction for the A's, and still got some issues with it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that after the break. The MLB season is here, where every game matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. Here's what I like about it. You can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. The app makes it easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. And during the MLB season, the extra insight really matters when you're looking at stars, role players, and key moments. It just makes the entire baseball season more engaging from start to finish. The A's right now are plus 750 to win the AL West, and despite the fact that they had a pretty uninspiring performance this weekend against the White Sox, I would still take those odds because I think the American League West is wide open this year. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel. Play your game. All right, let's move on here to some of the A's lineup construction and the fact that I really think the A's need to figure out this leadoff spot. And I understand this is a tough thing for Mark Kotsay because no one in the lineup has been playing all that well. So it's really hard to kind of zero in on one spot in the lineup and say that, oh, this one spot of the lineup is really going to make a difference as opposed to other spots of the lineup. But I think the leadoff spot, because I've kind of hammered on it quite a bit so far on this show this year, is really kind of symbolic of the entire team as a whole and a major issue I have with the lineup. And that's the fact that no one knows their role right now. If I'm Nick Kurtz, am I a leadoff hitter? Am I a cleanup hitter? Or am I a fifth place hitter? If I'm Shea Langelier, I could ask myself the same question. If I'm Jacob Wilson, am I a leadoff hitter or a fifth place hitter? Or am I a two hitter? Or am I a six hitter? If I'm Jeff McNeil, am I a leadoff hitter? Am I a middle of the order hitter? Or am I a 9-place hitter? If I'm Max Muncy, am I a 6-place hitter? Am I an 8-place hitter? Like, there's just so much doubt. If I'm Lawrence Butler, am I a leadoff hitter? Am I an 8-place hitter? Am I a bench player? Like, there's just so much doubt about the roles on this A's team. And look, I get it. This is the team of Moneyball. This is the team about trying to scrape off as much as you can off the bone on every single matchup with weird lineup construction, finding guys that other teams may not like, doing weird things. I understand it. The A's are that team. They pioneered that whole Moneyball approach, so I get it. However, I think that's okay if you have a team full of a bunch of platoon guys, which, to be fair, I don't think is a great way to build a team anyway. The A's don't have that, thank God. The A's have a bunch of different guys, a bunch of different young stars who they're hoping to be everyday players in those spots for many years to come. A's fans expect Nick Kurtz to be their starting first baseman for a long time. They expect Jacob Wilson, partially because he signed a huge contract extension, but also because he's a really good player. They expect him to be their starting shortstop going forward. They're expecting Max Muncy to be their starting third baseman. They're expecting Tyler Soderstrom to be their starting left fielder. They're expecting Shea Langeliers to be their starting catcher, although we can get into a really interesting conversation about his contract coming up, but we'll save that for another episode. They expect Brent Rooker to be their starting designated hitter. They expect Denzel Clark to be their starting center fielder. You know, there's just guys on this team. You expect them to be in certain spots for a very, very long time. So if that's the case, why not give them a spot in the lineup and let them be there? Let them hit in that spot every single day. You know, Harold Reynolds on MLB Network, he does a great piece when he's talking about like some of these platoon teams, some of these teams that switch up the lineup all the time, talking about how as a former player, he always played better on teams where he knew his role, because it's just so much easier to prepare day in and day out knowing, okay, I'm going to bat second. I know I'm going to bat second. I'm going to bat second. And yeah, every once in a while you can change it up. That's fine. But to have no idea when you show up to the ballpark where you're going to bat and what situation you're going to be in, I just don't think it breeds sustainable success. And particularly on the leadoff spot, because I know that's technically what this segment is supposed to be about. You know, it takes a certain mindset to be a really good leadoff hitter. Being a leadoff hitter is much different than being a cleanup hitter. If you're the leadoff hitter, you come up to the plate first, you have no idea if that starting pitcher has his good stuff today or not. At least if you bat later in the lineup, you have an opportunity to adjust based off what the prior hitters have seen. If you're a leadoff hitter, also, your main focus more than anything else is getting on base. That is your main focus, as opposed to being a cleanup hitter where your main focus is to do damage. This has been true about baseball as long as baseball has been played. And I know things change, but some things stay the same. So why wouldn't I want to know as a player or as a manager who's going to bat in that leadoff spot every single day? And right now, no one has any idea. And because of that, partially because of that, that's why they're not, I don't think the A's are having much success finding an effective leadoff hitter, because no one really knows how to be a leadoff hitter because they haven't gotten enough experience to really get into a rhythm in that spot. But also, they're just putting guys in that leadoff spot where it makes no sense. I'm sorry. Nick Kurtz is not a leadoff hitter. Shea Langeliers is not a leadoff hitter. There is no context where those two guys should bat leadoff. I understand we're trying to get cute, but it's not cute. It just doesn't work. Jacob Wilson is a guy who can be a leadoff hitter. And I know he hasn't taken a lot of walks this year, and that's one of the bugaboos about Jacob Wilson, actually. He's a great bat-to-ball guy. He gives you a good at-bat. He doesn't strike out a lot, although he has struck out more this year than we would have liked. But he doesn't take a lot of walks. Still, though, he gets on base more than Lawrence Butler does. And I still would rather have him in the leadoff spot than Nick Kurtz and Shea Langeliers, because those are the guys who are supposed to do damage. And I'm not in the clubhouse, so I'm not going to say this for sure, but I'd be willing to bet that part of the reason that Nick Kurtz is struggling to start this season is because he has no idea what his role is. Is his role to be the leadoff hitter, or is his role to be the big bopper in the middle of the lineup? Shea Langeliers has been on this team long enough to where I think he's kind of adjusted to like having no idea what he's going to do on a day in or day out basis, but I don't think that's a sustainable way to build a team. You want to know what my lineup would be for this A's team? Wilson batting first, Jeff McNeil batting second. Right off the bat, you got a guy in Jacob Wilson who I trust in the leadoff spot. You got a guy in Jeff McNeil who has batted second for a large portion of his career with the New York Mets. Batting third, and we're assuming Brent Rooker is healthy, by the way, in this lineup construction, just because for the exercise for my mind. Batting third, I'm going Nick Kurtz. I know Nick Kurtz has struggled to start the season, but this is the guy you invested money. This is the guy you want to invest money in. This is the guy who you want to be the face of your franchise. So I'm batting him third. I'm batting Shea fourth. I'm batting Brent Rooker fifth. I'm going to go Soderstrom sixth. I think Soderstrom works great in that sixth spot because it takes a little bit of pressure off of him. He's not the main middle of the order guy, and he can kind of be the sneak attack weapon in the sixth spot. Then I'm going Max Muncy seventh. I'm going Denzel Clark eighth, and you can put Lawrence Butler in the ninth spot. Right now, Lawrence Butler's just not hitting, so I think Butler in the ninth spot is fair. If Lawrence Butler does start hitting, then I wouldn't be mad moving him up. I wouldn't be mad putting Lawrence Butler up in the middle of the order, and you can switch a guy here and there. I'm not saying that you have to have your lineup just be a concrete slab every single day. That's what we're going to do every single time. But I do think it is valuable to have roles, and I do think we need to figure out who the leadoff guy is going to be. And I think Jacob Wilson just makes too much sense. I know he batted in the leadoff spot yesterday, so I'm going to give Mark Kotze credit for that. But going forward, he should be the leadoff man. And I am just so tired of having to guess, having to play roulette on who is going to be the guy who's going to bat leadoff every single day. And I'm sure many of you also feel the same way about the situation as well. And again, I'm going to say this one more time so I don't have to say it again. Nick Kurtz and Shea Langoliers should never bat leadoff. It is just not a good usage of their skills. And then you don't have a guy in the middle of the order who can actually do damage. So you end up having to hit Jacob Wilson in the middle of the order, who shouldn't be there anyway, because he should be batting leadoff. So anyway, that's my little rant on that. Anyway, after the break, we are going to talk a little bit about Luis Severino. I'm done with him. I'm ready to cut bait. We're going to talk a little bit about that after the break. All right, welcome back, folks. So Luis Severino had another Luis Severino performance for the A's on Saturday. He was awful. He's been terrible pretty much his entire A's career, particularly at home. I know he's a little bit better on the road, but you're going to play half your games at home. So if you got a guy who sucks at home, he probably shouldn't be on your team. 5 earned runs over 5 1/3, again, for Severino. He walks 4. His ERA is now up to 6.2. He has an over 6 ERA in his career at home at Sutter Health Park. And he has been really, really, really bad as an A for this short tenure. He had a 4.54 ERA last year. He gave up a hit an inning. He gave up many more than that as far as base runners an inning. He gave up 50 walks to go along with a hit an inning last year. He didn't strike out that many guys. He only struck out 124 and 162 and 2/3 innings. I don't think this guy's a very good pitcher, at least for the A's at this point. And I prepared for this, and I started looking at some guys down in the minors right now. I didn't include Jamie Arnold because I think Jamie Arnold, let's give him a chance to develop. But Gage Jump right now down in Las Vegas. And I get it's a short sample size. 3 games started, 10 1/3 innings pitched, 2.61 ERA with 16 strikeouts in 10 1/3. This guy's nasty. This guy's really good. I'd rather have him in the rotation right now than Luis Severino. How about the A's? Another one of the A's top 5 prospects, Wei-En from Taiwan. He's only 20 years old. He's got a 2.25 ERA in 4 games started. In 16 innings, he's got 22 strikeouts. Now, granted, that is at the AA level, but I once had a guy tell me when I was working in the minor leagues that AA is where your best prospects are anyway. AAA is kind of where you have your quadruple A guys kind of stacked up, kind of replacement level guys. So I value a lot what guys can do at the AA level. And right now, Wei-En is pitching really, really well. Let's go back to Gage Jump. Gage Jump, 2025, larger sample size, 3.28 ERA over 24 innings. He threw 112 and 2/3 innings, 131 strikeouts. That's really good stuff right there. Like, he only gave up 7 home runs also in those 112 and 2/3 innings, and that's in the PCL, which is a league full of bandboxes. Imagine a league full of Coors Fields. That's what the PCL is. In 2025, Wei-En pitched for Stockton, he pitched for Lansing, and he pitched for Midland. So he pitched at low A, high A, and double A. Between those 3 stops, he had a 3.72 ERA, 87 innings, 117 strikeouts. These are 2 guys I would argue are major league ready. They're ready to come up. Now, maybe Wei-En is a little bit more time, could use a little bit more time. He's only 20 years old after all. So maybe you give him a little bit more time to develop. But Wei-En, I mean, it's not like this guy is just, coming out straight up without any amount of polish. Wei-En has pitched with the Taiwanese national team. He pitched for Chinese Taipei. He was on their roster for the World Baseball Classic. I haven't seen if he actually pitched in that tournament. My apologies. I probably should have looked that up, but he was a part of the player pool for the Chinese Taipei team, which means he's played some high-level baseball throughout his life. So this is not like some high school kid that you're getting from some small town out in Georgia who hasn't had a chance to really play against big league guys or really good competition. He's played against good competition. My point about this that I'm trying to make is I'd rather have either of those 2 guys in the rotation right now than Luis Severino. To be honest with you, I'd probably rather see Luis Medina pitch than Luis Severino. At this point, I know what I'm going to get with Luis Severino. I'm going to get a whole bunch of excuses about how he hates the ballpark. I'm going to get bad start after bad start at home. And I get that we're paying him a lot of money. Like, I understand that, but that mistake's already been made. At this point, if you're really trying to compete this year, there's got to be someone better than Luis Severino, particularly in that number 1 spot of the rotation. We're talking about a guy who's supposed to be your ace. He's got a 6.2 ERA, and he has no idea how to pitch at your home ballpark. That's pathetic. That's awful. And so I don't know if you put him in the bullpen, but I think Luis Severino probably wouldn't even want to pitch in the bullpen. I have a feeling that he is stuck in his ways. He wants to be a starter, and he wants it his way. And so, I don't know. Maybe that's a conversation worth having. Could Luis Severino come out of the bullpen? But then again, I'm not even sure if he'd be good out of the bullpen because he hasn't been good as a starter. Why would I assume that he's going to all of a sudden come out of the bullpen and be really good? Now, the A's are probably not going to cut bait with him anytime soon because they are paying him so much money. So they're probably going to allow him to keep on going out there. And then the other thing that we kind of addressed on the show last week is that I don't think anyone wants to trade for this guy because he's been so bad and because he's kind of just made a bunch of excuses for how bad he's been in his A's tenure. So if I'm a team that's looking to trade for someone, it's not going to be Luis Severino. I'm not going to go out and spend a lot of stuff on Luis Severino. Now, maybe if you can get him for nothing, like if you can get him for cash, then maybe. But yeah, man, I don't know. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of watching Luis Severino go out there and expecting something that's not going to happen. I'm tired of watching him go out there and expecting him to be this ace that he was supposed to come here and be, and then just, seeing him go out there and get whamped or see him go out there and just getting absolutely walloped day in and day out. I had someone in the comments last week tell me that I was being a little hard on Luis Severino for 4 earned runs over 6 innings. Well, guess what? He gave up 5 earned runs in 5 1/3 this time. He's shown no willingness to try to adjust to the ballpark. He's shown no willingness to get better for the A's. And I'm ready to cut bait with him. I'm done. That's it. And I really want to see some of these young guys come up and give them a chance. I want to see Gage jump. I want to see Wei-En let. I want to see Jamie Arnold eventually. And so that's my little rant on Luis Severino. Might end up becoming a weekly thing unless the A's either do one of two things. They either get rid of him or if Luis Severino actually becomes a good starting pitcher again. Anyway, that's the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back with another show tomorrow. And the A's getting ready to take on the Mariners. So we'll make sure to give you a full breakdown of that series that's coming up. And we'll give you a wrap-up of the first game of that series up in the Emerald City. So thank you so much, folks, and thank you so much for watching.